divisive. For every one video of how well Luke Skywalker was done in The Last Jedi, you'll get like 2 of how his character was supposedly assassinated. Now, as you can—
I saw darkness. I'd sensed it building in him. I'd seen it in moments during his training. But then I looked inside, and it was beyond what I ever imagined. Snoke had already turned his heart. He would bring destruction and pain and death at the end of everything I love because of what he will become. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it. It passed like a fleeting shadow. And I was left with shame. And with consequence. And the last thing I saw were the eyes of a frightened boy whose master had failed.
On my new episode of Exposed, I will be exposing lies being spread in the Star Wars community. And I will expose it and break it down, and I'm laying it down right here.
Now, for me to continue this discussion, I need to explain what George Lucas would want his main character to represent. And to do that, we need to travel back 45 years to the 1970s.
Alright, you didn't explain shit. It goes on like this for his entire video, and he doesn't even explain his point. His point being that George Lucas would have liked The Last Jedi's Luke. Alright, still waiting, and this whole thing barely explains anything about how George Lucas would actually feel towards The Last Jedi's Luke. He spends this whole time explaining all this other stuff that has nothing to do with his main point.
It is well known that the treatment of Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy is somewhat divisive. For every one video of how well Luke Skywalker was done in The Last Jedi, you'll get like 2 of how his character was supposedly assassinated. Now, as you can—
I saw darkness. I'd sensed it building in him. I'd seen it in moments during his training. But then I looked inside, and it was beyond what I ever imagined. Snoke had already turned his heart. He would bring destruction and pain and death at the end of everything I love because of what he will become. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it. It passed like a fleeting shadow. And I was left with shame. And with consequence. And the last thing I saw were the eyes of a frightened boy whose master had failed him.
You can tell from my opening sequence with my boy Claude over there, I am beyond positive about Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy. I mean, I would go as far to say that I believe Luke in the sequel trilogy is exactly what George Lucas would have wanted his main character to represent. I would go as far to say that I believe Luke in the sequel trilogy is exactly what George Lucas would have wanted his main character to represent. I would go as far to say that I believe Luke in the sequel trilogy is exactly what George Lucas would have wanted his main character to represent. Now, for me to continue this discussion, I need to explain what George Lucas would want his main character to represent. And to do that, we need to travel back 45 years to the 1970s.
This is what bothers me about the Goldman. He says that George Lucas would love The Last Jedi's version of Luke Skywalker, but he didn't prove his point and spent a long time talking about the 1970s instead of getting straight to the point as to why he would like that. First off, how can you assume how George Lucas would feel about a version of his character? We don't know how he would react to that. Also, the character attempted to kill a child. Luke was created by George. So how would he react to seeing his own character contemplate killing an innocent person? We don't know how he would react to such a thing, but to assume it would be a good reaction is quite the assumption. Also, Goldman didn't thoroughly explain why George would feel this way. This is insanity. How could you assume something on the deepest level like this? How insane! George would love seeing Luke attempt to burn down ancient knowledge that Lucas upholded. Lucas would love seeing Kylo's lightsaber clash with Ben Solo's. Lucas would love seeing Luke not train, not try and help his friends, and say the Jedi, it's time to end. How could you assume what he's thinking, first off, and wrongfully false represent George Lucas's perspective to a bunch of other people just to put up the sequel fandom? Not only is this disingenuous, but it's false. This is why I have a huge issue with Goldman's content, because he presents information in a false light just to present the sequels in a positive light. Here goes the genius himself, claiming bullshit about George Lucas as if he knows the guy. He doesn't know jack diddly shit. He is speaking for George Lucas as if George would share the same beliefs that a fan of the new trilogy would share. How flawed! When you can't assume what everyone is thinking, what you're thinking, or everyone likes, or what you like. That's some assumptuous shit to assume something on that level. Let me break it down. Goldman has been constantly coming out spreading lies about the trilogy, exaggerating and adding storytelling elements to the movie it never used, just to put the sequels in a more positive light. Yeah, in a false way, you're being false. If you lie about a film just for other people to feel good about liking it, you are being false. And that's exactly what he did. The video is disingenuous. I can understand the focus needing to be on the new characters. I just don't understand how Goldman could say George Lucas would love The Last Jedi's Luke. He hasn't proven that. And what does he have to base this on? This is what I'm laying down. This is Tarragon, and I am now out this piece. Consider Goldman exposed.